Rancho has one floor. It's basically a one-bedroom house. So when you go from the second little living room, there's a kitchen and a bathroom on the side, and then there's a pantry. And then at the back door, you go down some steps, and then you have to walk around the back porch, and then you can get into the basement.
And I smoked a little bit of weed. And then I got on my bike and rode down California, looking for a place. Me and my girlfriend at the time, and Kate, and fucking just riding down, being punk and shit, I guess. Looking for a place to play some music and lay my head. So I saw the for rent sign.
And habitate.
And then saw a little house there, little shed of a house, fucking right next to the highway.
Wavos. Rancho Wavos. Danny's the one who named me Wavos. Came to practice and like had names for everybody. Ben Jamon, Chris Wavos, Danny Chorizo, or like none of this shit stuck. Ryan was moving out. I was doing with Skeletor. Skeletor moved up to the north side, betrayed the south side, and he still had shows booked. The first show after I moved in, it was Sinorden and some band from Spain, Cinder.
Cinder?
Yeah, Cinder. Yeah, it was like, that's kind of why I moved in, because Ryan had already booked that show and then had to move out. It was a really good show, but the drain for the kitchen sink used to be a pipe that went right through the middle of the basement. And then as soon as Cinder or Sinorden started playing and the pit goes and it busted the pipe. Like, so I know kitchen sink for a while.
Picture of some meatballs, and that's the oldest like decorative paraphernalia that's still on Rancho.
Oh, downstairs?
And that was possibly the genesis of Meat Wagon, but there's a picture of some meatballs Alfredo looking.
This could have been called the Meat Wagon?
No.
That's what Ryan tried
That's what Ryan tried to call it. For one, it is not Rancho Huevos. It is Rancho Huevos. It is not Huevos Rancheros. And it is definitely not Archer Nemesis. It is Rancho Huevos. Get it fucking straight.
From Balls it went to Wavos because he lived there, so that was like his property. So Rancho Wavos.
I heard a different story. The story I heard was because I guess it was like Benny teabagged Chris, and they called him Balls from that point on, and then they changed it to Wavos.
But yeah, Danny's the one who came up with Huevos. And then I think Suave came up with Rancho just to come up with the name.
So yeah, it was mainly because Chris lived there, and it was his.
But it's also cool because I mean, there's been so many like on my other side, there's been so many good shows I told a friend of mine that like as shitty as it is, like, I feel like just that house means more to me than some people I've met.
It's been going on since 2005, 4 or 5.
That's the whole point, you know. It's all about contributing to the scene and trying to, you know, offer something that's otherwise lacking, you know.
I grew up in Pilsen, pretty close to where Rancho is. It was really accessible place to get to when I was like 16 years old, which is pretty much the first time I started going to punk shows. And my first show was at Rancho. I don't remember which bands played because I was just more like excited to be there around like all these other badass weirdos. And so in terms of like DIY space, I just would like to say that Rancho is like fucking rad because it's like one of the only places basically on the south side where like people can come and have a great time at a show and like not worry about like stupid normative shit that people usually worry about. I feel like, you know, DIY is important because you know, people can come to these spaces and really like be themselves and like evolve how they want to. And you know, we get to sit in a fucking back closet and everyone's walking through here, but it's still fucking great. I just really love Rancho and I'm really glad. I've been able to like see it change over the years. Like, when I was first there, I feel like it was a lot of like older males who were like dominating the space, and I feel like I came in at a good time. Like it became more of like a badass queer space.
Well, I'm Alberto Ruiz. Been around the Chicago scene for like, like 9-8 years now, something like that. So I'm 25 now. I started going to shows when I was about 16. DIY shows. That's when I started. When I count the beginning of my punk life. Ever since then, I was kind of hooked on the DIY scene. I'm from Albany Park on the north side because I'm Guatemalan and that's where all the Guatemalans live. My first experience with Rancho, I'm trying to remember the exact show. I have a feeling it was a show that my old band Intifada played. And we were probably asked by the dudes from No Slogan. Played it, yeah, because Chris used to live there, and yeah, that's why I say Rancho Wavos, because of Chris Wavos. I can't exactly recall the first show, but I do have some memorable ones. Whatchamacallit. There's this band from Spain that played called Cinder. That was a really good show. Oh, and they were touring with
Cinder fucking rules.
So yeah, they played with Hit Me Back too from LA, and that was a super fun show. Intifada played. But I remember that. A funny thing is I didn't really fully understand what straight edge was back then. And I remember Cinder was straight edge. I think I was like offering them cigarettes and beer the whole time because I was 17 and I thought it was really cool doing such things. One sign of playing Rancho Wavos was always you'd come out with like these black boogers or something, some kind of like discharge, and it was always black, and it's probably because like of old dust, dirt, asbestos, whatever, like just like lingering down there because it was a danky ass basement. One of my favorite memories of Ranchos was I did this one show for my buddies from LA, Duérate. They were playing, and we were doing this place called the Fort Cackalack, it was called back then, off of was it Kedzie and 21st. This is Warehouse, and it's going. There's 9 bands because I'm an idiot and I booked that many bands, and the first 2 bands play. The cops come. Busted down because some girl thought it necessary to go take a piss 2 blocks away in some lady's house. So the cops come in, bust the show down, and I'm like, shit, I got my homies from LA here, what am I gonna do? So I call up Josh, who was living in Rancho Wavos at the time, and I told him like, yo, can I move this show with like 100 plus people already in attendance there? And he's like, yeah, do it. So the cop's standing next to me, and I'm standing there at the doorway while everyone's leaving. And I'm whispering to everybody, Rancho Wavos, Rancho Wavos, Rancho Wavos. And the cop goes and thinks I'm telling them to chupa mis huevos, which means like suck my balls in Spanish. So he keeps on saying it because he thinks it's like something funny and lewd to say, like Chubais Huevos, Chubais Huevos. But no, I'm really telling Rancho Huevos, Rancho Huevos. So at least like 3/4 of the people that were at that show went over to Rancho Huevos, and we had the rest of the show, and it was freaking awesome.
Alright, well, my name is Marta, Marty, whatever, Aguila. Play in Sangre Relajo. And I don't know, I think what's most memorable about Rancho Huevos is that it's still known as Rancho Huevos because that name never like left, and like it's legendary. And I think in a place like Chicago where it's hard to come by spaces and stuff, like it's still known as that. Like I think it's changed twice, you know, ever since that, and like people still know it as that. And so my only kind of regret, I wouldn't say regret per se, but like lament is that I wasn't sober most of the time to remember a memorable moment. So I know, it was fucking awesome. Like hanging out outside, I think that was like the coolest, like having a space to chill. And then like that musty smell, I remember that. Yeah, like weird boogers. I don't know, I feel honored to have been able to like play there, chill there, and just be a part of it in so many capacities that it's still fucking Rancho Huevos.
I am Kelly George. I am 24. I live up in Humboldt Park these days. But anyway, so the first time I came here, I must have been 18 or 19. I may have still even lived in Indiana. I came in here, the kitchen was still bright green, and I had never seen anything like it in the city. And I came in and I was kind of like in love with it, and I was like, I want to live here someday. 3 years from there, we came in the house and acted surprised, like we acted like we'd never been here before. We're like, wow, it's so nice. And you know, we dressed like normal people so we could, you know, kind of convince him we were normal. And we thought we were all in the clear, like, but the day he gave us the keys to the basement, he pulls us into the back room and he says, I don't want you guys to have any of those loud parties in the basement. We're just like, oh, what do you mean? They'd have metal parties. You're like what? He's just like, you know, wore black and hung out until 4 a.m. Oh, okay. And, you know, we just said, of course not. But in reality, we had our first show booked for 2 weeks from there.
Well, yeah, when he showed us the basement, actually, I was like, oh wow, I could totally do my painting there. Like, and I don't really paint.
We definitely had a lot of them for how small it was. Like, I can't even, you know, remember, I wouldn't even be able to tell you all the different bands that came through here, but, you know, there were several nights where the whole floor was just lined up with some strange dirty dudes from West Virginia or something. We also had someone living down in the basement, which was pretty intense. It was pretty intense how much he didn't want to live in Indiana. To pay money to sleep in a moldy basement and have to put your room away every week for a show.
There's a lot of people that gather in this space, and there's never enough lines and room for the bathroom, so inevitably people end up going to the alley. So I remember one time in one of my ridiculous shenanigans, I went to the alley and I was peeing, and lo and behold, a cop car rolls up, and you know, the light signs turn on, everybody scatters, and I'm the only one left. And they put me up against the car. they asked me for ID, and the only ID I have is my little passport thing. And I wasn't born in this country, I was born in Spain. And I give it to them. And the funny thing about Americans, and especially pigs, is that they don't know the difference between Spain and Mexico or any of these different countries. So I gave them this card, and they saw place of origin, Madrid, Spain, and they were like, oh, immigrant, huh? Coming over here to pee in our alleys. And they started asking me all these questions. They were like, oh, so you have an ID? Why don't you have a state ID? And I'm like, well, I never got one. They're like, you have to get one if you've been living here for at least 12 months. How long you been living here? And I'm like, 11 months. And they're like, you know what, you're being a smart ass, da, da, da. And they pull me up against the car and they're grilling me all these questions. Derek's acting all tough, like coming up, like standing by there, trying to intimidate them, being like, yeah, you guys, if you do anything, you're gonna have a bunch of smarmy teenagers on your ass or something. And it's like, you think about scenes and like the way that they relate to like, the police and then them shows getting shut down and whatever, and like racism, whatever. It was this moment where I exist in the world as this kind of person, and for a split second, this like the idiocy of this fucking cop was just like, he's asking me, I'm peeing in an alley, and the first question he asked me is about like papers, please. He's like, where are your papers? How long have you been in this country? Like, da da da. And I'm like, So they give me like a huge fine. But in the end, joke's on CPD because the cop didn't fill it out right. So I didn't even pay the fine. Anyway, that's my story.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Marco, known as Marco Cholo. Nickname I picked up as a teenager. It's my first time I was at Rancho. It was back in 2008. There was a big show there called Clip Fest. It was pretty wild. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of different bands from all over the world, really.
How's it going? My name's Izzy Price. I play drums in Die Time. I played drums in Disrobe. Josh from Disrobe used to live at Rancho, which was pretty spectacular. There was a lot of bathroom lines. There was a lot of eyeballing posters going, wait, who's that? Wait, I remember that show. But one thing I definitely remember about every show there is the next morning, there's like black boogers blowing my nose and just lots of hacking for the next couple of days. I saw a lot of really awesome bands there. The one I probably enjoyed the most was Ballast. We were lucky enough to play with them one time. I don't know, they blew my mind. Everybody in the band bought a 7-inch, and that doesn't always happen. I think probably the coolest thing about Rancho over time was, and still to this day, is Josh's haunted house.
Lights and smoke and blood-splattered bed sheets help us to enable us to scare our friends and maybe get a few laughs along the way. It's all about sound and lights and getting the punks out together for free and having fun and making someone feel uneasy in a space that they already feel safe in.
And finds his twin brother Harry. Your turn ends.
If we can keep it rolling, despite whatever happens with the next venue, last year's haunted house. Hopefully, there's a video somewhere. I know I got fucking zapped. Warborner played, and Mac Blackout Band played, and Witch Shits played, and Looks Good played. But that was it, and everybody else, there was the Mad Executioner and the Killer Bacon, and the haunted demon car of blood splattered Archer Avenue, as always. And we just did the best that we could despite, you know, the circumstance at hand. And now I don't know if this year there's another rainstorm, I can't do it, man. The whole point of the haunted house is just to get everybody in the, you know, area excited, whoever wants to be excited about it. Kids from the neighborhood coming in and punching lights and getting chased out. Like, we just have a real good time, and it's a lot of fun. Everybody just goes wild.
My game. Rancho is so awesome. Look, I'm 26 years old now, but I've been playing Rancho since I was 18 years old. The house has been around for a long ass time, and it's a very crucial spot for DIY punk. The place is awesome. The neighbors are a little bit further away than typical Chicago, and everybody that has lived there is just so fucking awesome. They don't take shit, and they help the punk scene so much. But yeah, Rancho, totally fucking badass spot, keep it alive. I really hope that punks keep living there. A definite historic punk fucking basement to play. Local bands like fucking Crudos, you know, and fucking Krang, Warboner, like a lot of Chicago bands play there, and fuck yeah, keep it alive.
My name's Jack. I play in Bedzords. This is actually our last show tonight. Like, you're going down Archer and you see all these like 3 flat row houses just like lining there. And Archer, I've always felt this is like kind of spooky in general. And then you just come across like a house that looks like it's just like sinking into itself. And then beneath that house is this basement that just kind of like fosters some like really fucking cool creative endeavors, like whatever it is. Just like everybody from every aspect of every punk scene that Chicago has is like kind of always ended up there at some point, which is cool.
My name is Lindsay Ray, and I'm from Northwest Indiana, but I lived in Chicago for a long time, and I lived at Rancho for 2 years, 2010 to 2012. Well, I was living in Pilsen, and there was a movement where people wanted to stop gentrification, and they wanted people to move out of Pilsen, and Rancho was vacant at the time, so I dressed up in my nicest little art school student looking outfit and went to the landlord and convinced him I wasn't going to throw shows there. And got the house with Kelly. We threw shows a couple of months later, and when we paid rent, he sort of cornered us because you pay rent across the street at the hardware store, and he like took us in the back of the hardware store, and he's like, "You're throwing parties, aren't you? I knew you were going to throw parties." And I think at that point, the landlord sort of accepted that that was the fate of the house, and he was never going to be able to escape Chicago punks. If people were disrespectful, I had a variety of ways of dealing with it. Some were non-violent. Sometimes it was violent. There was a time where people were getting in a fight in the lot next door, and I tried to break it up, and somebody called me a fat, hairy armpit bitch, and definitely did some ass kicking there. You know, obviously, like, the law was not a part of Rancho, and like, I did not want, there were times where there were like 18-year-old girls passed out with like falling out of their clothes in my driveway, and like handling situations like that, and like, you know, all of a sudden this really fun, lighthearted, awesome party that's going on turns into a situation where I'm like reviving somebody on my couch who's vomiting all over my stuff that I don't even know their first name. I think Rancho helped a lot of kids develop into the punks they are now, and it's a great space to be at as a teenager. I think, well, my first Chicago show was at Albion House. Then the Herd in Condonada. Yeah. I think I was 15 or 16. Yeah. It was great. It was so awesome to see these like chubby, like awesome, loud women, you know, in a basement. It was so exciting for me. And I know that, like, living at Rancho, I know that I did that for some kids, you know? Like, I'll never forget going to Albion House, the way I felt when I saw these women. I realized that, like, the amount of sexual assault in other scenes is just, like, way lower than the punk scene that I've experienced. The Chicago punk scene's, like, I never stopped hearing about that type of shit, and that's really fucked up. I mean, I've definitely been active in a lot of show spaces in the city, and that was my number one problem that I had to deal with. People thinking that they're enlightened and different than a lot of the rest of society, when in reality we're all just as fucked up as everyone else. And I think that's one of our weaknesses, is like believing that we're above that all the time. As soon as somebody violates that in some way, cutting them out and like labeling them as something for the rest of their time in Chicago punk, and also not accepting that people do change. I think that Chicago punk could work on that. And that one shitty action somebody has when they're drunk doesn't necessarily define them, and that we've all had those days, those mistakes that we've made, and sometimes we're just lucky that certain people weren't around for them. And when you're at a punk show, it's a huge space and there's lots of people, and most of the time, most of the people are really drunk, and you know, there's so many intersecting personalities and so many like different situations going on, and you know, some people just got done working a 40-hour week and have a shit boss and just want to get wasted and go crazy, and then some people have like a really, I don't know, horrible thing happen to them on the way to the show, or somebody doesn't feel safe for some reason, and when those personalities and situations clash, things happen. I don't know.
And I came over for band practice one day, and I overheard her talking about moving and that the house was going to be up for grabs and that there were people asking about it. And I instantly told her that I would totally move in. Yeah, and next thing I knew, Lindsay was like, fuck yeah, I'm giving the house to you. I can't think of anyone else that I'd rather have live here. Jenny Lee stayed with me for a couple months, and then you moved in, and I had no intentions of living with anyone ever again. 2 months before that. Connect Yay!
I told him like the floor is messed up in the kitchen, and that's why we're not having shows, is we're worried about people falling through the floor because it bounces so bad when there's so many people up here. And he had somebody come over and look at it, and the guy did a little tap dance on it and was just like, it's fine, you can. And while he was telling me, he was like doing a little, like a two-step.
Hi, I'm Brendan. Singing Crane. Rancho Wavos has been such an integral part of my life for years and years now. Be it a show space, a haunted house, or just somewhere that some of my close friends live, it's always been a delightful and fucking excellent place to play, see a show, or just get out of your own head and really do something that you enjoy and be a part of such an excellent community, and something that I think everyone around the area can say they're proud of.
with Josh. He got the sleep paralysis first. And, I mean, basically he just woke up, couldn't move or anything for like a couple minutes. No big deal. And then a couple weeks later, it happened to me where I was in the basement with Harold because that's where he was sleeping at the time. And I woke up and I couldn't move, I couldn't speak, and I heard these like really weird voices in the corner, just like really like deep, low, demonic voices. They weren't saying anything, it was all gibberish. And then I kind of like snapped out of it. And it happened to Harold and it happened to Lindsay. I don't know if it happened to Kelly or not, but then like Kelly, Lindsay, Harold, and I all like cleansed the house, like burned sage, turned all the inverted crosses right side up, burned like a lot of white candles, and it was kind of all over with. It wasn't anything like too crazy other than like sleep paralysis and like the whatever was in the house would move random shit. Like when I was moving in, it would hide boxes, and I'd say like, oh yeah, I moved that into our room. And it would just, I don't know, be in some other random as fuck room.
Like a gas leak or something?
No!
Is it like the same, like, you know, like 3 weeks or something?
It all happened within a span of like a couple months. But like when it first happened to Josh, we just kind of thought like, okay, Josh does a lot of drugs. I'm sure he's just crazy, like sleep paralysis, whatever. That's what happens when you do a lot of drugs. But then it happened to like me and like everyone else. So it's like, oh, maybe it's
I'll believe it, Rancho.
No, legit. Have you heard the story from Josh about?
Oh, I've heard, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so
a
like where it
legitimate.
originated.
Yeah,
Oh
with
my-
the
devil on the dance floor.
the burnt, you know, hoof prints on the floor.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah.
When he told me that story, I was like, what the fuck?
That was in that lot, in the, you know, the parking lot.
Yeah.
That's where it was.
It's like, oh, no wonder there's like this tiny little house and this giant lot. Like, there must be a hotel there or something.
Oh yeah. No, I was like the one who it like didn't happen to. Like all my other roommates would be talking about, you know, experiencing like sleep paralysis or like really intense dreams, like feeling like they can't get up, but
Or like people getting possessed in the basement and weird shit like that, like Adam talking to like people that don't exist. Really weird things, I don't know.
That would be crazy.
Like him like in the shower thinking that someone else was in the room, thinking like Lindsay was there and like having conversations, but really no one was there.
The Cinder Show was the first show as Rancho.
As Rancho, right? Yeah,
because that was the first show when I moved in. Probably.
Had to dig that one up.
I can look around. I think I might actually have that.
So I was at that show, but I fell on fire.
The fucking drain to the sink.
So my name is Mez. I live at the 2040. We had shows for a while. And I was the singer in Sex Bunker. And my favorite part about it is the fact that I live close. It's a really cool house. It's got a nice basement. It's like one of those places that's had shows for long enough for it to like kind of wear into the house, like the way you wear into like a, like hypothetically you wear into a baseball glove, or in like my personal experience you wear into a leather jacket. In the end, good basement, fun place.
The dust.
Yeah. Where's that lighter? I need my dope. Thank you. That's all I got.
I think that Cinder Hit Me Back show was kind of the high point. Just because it was one of the most fun shows I think I had ever played. And well, it was fucking scary because then the next day everyone came out with fucking black lung.
Weird boogers.
Black boogers.
These black boogers.
gray to black.
Snot was all black.
I was fucking coughing out dirt.
I was like actually really proud of that. I was like, holy shit, my snot is black.
It's a great location for shows. I don't think it's a great location for anyone to live there.
Ooh, you eat that. Ooh. You want this one? Natural menthol flavor.
My face pasta? I'll be right out.
No,
My face have pasta on it?
It's just pasta visual.
Well, the whole thing was like back, like, you know, you watch American hardcore, or you weren't there. It's like Punk died, blah blah blah, and you know, And like Larry and Marie are part of that era of people who like thought punk died in like 85 or 86 or whenever, 84, you know. It's all like, now there's something that's still going on. It's fucking viable. It's fucking creative. It's interesting. It's maybe the music isn't as fucking cutting edge as it was in 1982, I guess. But you know, the fact that there's a community, we're finding new ways to rebel, find new ways to do something different, to carve our own path.
Longer Rancho's gonna run. I don't know if that's the purpose of this, is because it's not gonna run much longer, but I hope it doesn't die. I hope it stays there. You always need a good place to shows. That place for some reason just lasted through name change after name change after name change, but still Rancho Wavos. But what was the Archer Nemesis for a little bit there? And there was another one that I just was like, cool, I'm not gonna remember that.
It's always amazing when a space like transfers ownership.
Everybody wants to have like their own clever name that they thought they came up with.
But like the point is like multiple people have catched it.
So, yeah, I don't know. Best thing about that place is seriously like, I don't know, when I first joined into this thing, I joined with Al when I was like 16 and he was 26. He's 10 years older than me. He plays bass in Disrobe at that time. And like, I was always the youngin' with a bunch of older bandmates, and it took all of like 3-4 years to be one of the old dudes surrounded by a new crop of young people. I had nothing but a blast there.
I think somebody stupidly said, call it Wavos Rancheros, and then fucking... Why are you going to call a house Wavos Rancheros when you can call it... Exactly, you know? It's a much better name. It's a more appropriate name, you know?
It works.
It works. So I think it was Suave who came up with that. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, so to me, Rancho, it was like the first venue I heard of in Chicago that was doing shows and shit. And I think still after 5 years, it's real legit DIY, classic punk rock house show venue.
And I always remember Rancho's as a place that was like, you know, close enough for me to go. Like, I can ride my bike there. It's beautiful that it's like a fixture. The only other place that I've seen like it is in DeKalb. There's a place called the 7th Street Space that people have maintained for like 15 years and it just kind of passes down from person to person. Rancho's is amazing like that because it's almost organic.
So yeah, fucking Rancho rules. And that's it. I guess it's important to my existence and fucking a lot of people here. So I love it and I ruined this.
Hate it?
Yeah, that's it. That's cool. That's all I got.
But there are a lot of really, really good bands currently now, especially like my favorite for a while has been Escalofrío. They're just ridiculously amazing. And, you know, Sinodan's always been good. It has been a house that since I got involved in the punk scene, you know, it's still there, and, you know, that means something. You know, hardcore has really been the most constant thing in my life aside from my family. Ever since I decided to get involved in this silly-ass counterculture. And, I mean, I love it. I love it. You meet interesting people because, like, even though, yeah, we're all punk, it's not a monolith. Like I said, you're straight edge, brown, first generation, immigrant, queer, trans, all that stuff, you know, and it's all good. That's, I guess Rancho Wavos seems to be like the epitome of all that, because like it's seen so many changes in the scenes and like all the bands that have gone through it. Everyone's been represented, and that's straight as hell. And I hope it goes on for a bunch of years. And when I'm 10 more years, when I'm 35, and still doing this silly ass thing on my weekends, and I don't tell my employers about.
I never once been as necessary said I couldn't take.
I heard about this house living in West Michigan. The name Rancho, it's at least Rancho. That's what I heard of it as.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved here in 07, but then I found out about a show, and so I came down here like a week later.
Was that the show that you and a bunch of people sat out back for like hours and nothing happened?
That was a different show. But pretty much every time I've been down here, like up until shortly before moving here, I would get a 6-pack at the All-Star. I would sit on the curb in the alley behind, and I would drink like almost a whole 6-pack before the show started.
It was late fall, a crisp, inky night. I was at a Rancho show, and my black skinny jeans caught on something, and one whole butt cheek tore off. Outside of Punkland, that would mean game over, this night's a bust. But not here. I stayed and socialized and went inside and outside and inside and outside, along with everybody else. I could chalk up my not caring to typical punk behavior, but it's more than that, and I would like to go back and hug the ghost of Rancho's past for creating such a warm, inclusive, unself-conscious space. Aww. I now recognize something special about those days that I took for granted and miss now. Old lady nostalgia. Oh, and my current partner was at that show, and remember standing in the back and checking out my bare ass. That cozy weird vibe that night was the best. Yep.
Since Pepe lived here, apparently.
Pepe lived here?
This is Pepe. This is the house Pepe grew up in.
This is what we heard. This is the new news.
Which is crazy that
Pepe.
he doesn't take care of it, but somehow like you think if you didn't care about it anymore, you just get rid of it. But like.
I think maybe he thinks he's gonna flip it. Like he has the idea he's gonna flip it.
Right before I left, or towards the end of when I was here, they had like a realtor and a fucking inspector going through because Pepe's senile dad decided that he wanted to try to apparently sell the house, but not the land. Just the house. He wanted to inspect the house to see if they could like sell the house and sell it to somebody else and move it somewhere else.
Like pick up the house and
pick up the house.
No.
Pick up the house.
I mean that's a thing, but for
no, not
for
Rancho.
Like trailers, it happens. I saw
not
it happen
Rancho.
once.
Rancho will not be picked up and moved over.
So if you had $1 for every time you got drunk in the backyard, how much money would you have?
Enough to like pay my rent for the years to come.
We've been having shows there for a long time. It keeps changing hands, and we're going to keep doing it. And hopefully, I'm not going to have to live there, but somebody will live there and is going to want to be, rad and contribute to the scene. And
it's a really interesting environment to be a part of, and I think that it's taught me a lot about life and about about people and it changed the way I interact with people, and for the better, for sure.
Gives a shit about the Ultra Lounge. It was a shitty venue. Whatever. We're talking about Rancho.
It was the mid to late 2000s, and I lived in a roach-filled apartment next door to Rancho. It felt very luxurious to hear shows gathering speed and just kind of pop over easy peasy. Sometimes a pal and I would leave the show and go back next door to drink water and use my bathroom because there was no line. One night, we flicked the hallway lights off to be sneakier, I guess, and lean out of an upstairs window with a bullhorn shouting things like, "Enough with the racket, we're calling the cops," or "Punk's dead," or "Do your parents know where you are?" and "Shouldn't you be inside supporting the touring band?" At first, the backyard erupted. Middle fingers, unintelligible shouting, feebly thrown empties. Then it was down to two old-timers. They scowled at us, middle fingers raised, until Pups and I got bored and went back downstairs.